I was really stuck in this place of, I was in tears. My doctor put me on Ativan, and I'm a coper. I'm a strong coper. And I couldn't do this. I can only imagine if somebody said, "What would hell be to you?" And I would say this was hell. And it was bad. You blame yourself. As a little kid, you blame anything that's going wrong. A kid doesn't know that it's their parents' problem. All they know is that the fault lays with them. So they have to toe the line, shut up, put those emotions aside.
And do your best to fix the problems in the household.
Welcome to The Story Behind the Symptoms, a podcast from Symptomatic.me. Your host is David Clark, MD, a board-certified gastroenterologist who successfully diagnosed and treated over 7,000 patients with neuroplastic pain or illness. Each episode, we dive into our guests' life experiences to uncover the deeper causes of their symptoms. By listening to their story, you will gain insights that advance your own journey towards knowledge that becomes healing.
Hello, and welcome to the Story Behind the Symptoms podcast. I am your host, Dr. David Clark, president of the ATNS that you can find at Symptomatic.me. And in this podcast, we talk to people who have suffered neuroplastic symptoms and try to understand the story that led to those symptoms and to their recovery in most cases. And my guest today is Samantha Ferris. Samantha, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi there. My name is Samantha Ferris. Vancouver, Canada is where I live. I struggled with chronic pain for over 20 years before I finally found the way out. And it was an incredible journey. It was one of the, I can honestly say, top 3 hardest things I've ever done in my life. It was really, truly the best of times and the worst of times. And, a lot of people don't know when theirs started. And I can tell you, actually, it's funny. I know the day that I woke up and my life had changed. It was March.
That is unusual. Yeah.
It is unusual. And some people go, oh, it started with a back pain or a neck pain or something or whatever. I mean, IBS. Yes, I had IBS as a child. Probably TMS or neuroplastic symptoms, whichever term you use. I use mind-body syndrome, but we're all talking about the same thing. I woke up March 7th of 2004 and my life changed. And I just remember thinking my main symptoms, and sometimes the symptoms move around for people, but usually we have a main symptom from what I've seen of other people. Mine was bladder. So I woke up and it just felt like, oh, that's funny. It's bladder infection. I'm not a bladder infection person, but I thought, okay, whatever. I'll go to the doctor. Doctor, they do a test and they said they didn't see anything, but back then, they're very whatever. So they just gave me a round of antibiotics and it didn't go away. And it started to get worse. And
they gave you a round of antibiotics even though you didn't have an infection.
Yeah. I mean, don't forget, this is 24 years ago, right? 25 years ago. And
it's happening today as well.
It is. And
we physicians are trying to put people's symptoms into a biomedical box. And if we don't have any other explanation, we make it fit somehow.
Which is dangerous. And
it's incorrect.
Yeah. And it's also, it adds to the hopelessness, right, of people that they're like, well, if that didn't help me, then, and you're a doctor, and if what you gave me didn't help, where am I going to go with this? And that is eventually where I got to a very dark place. But I kind of tried everything. I really tried everything. And and it got worse and it got worse and it got worse. And what I realize now is I'm an actor and a radio announcer. I was an actor and radio announcer before I got into this business. And I had just come back from pilot season in LA. And pilot season is a very, very stressful time of year for actors. And it really beats on their confidence and their self-worth. And, I didn't put the two together until years later, but I had just come off a horrible time in LA. And while I was there, it was fine. But once I got back and, my system calmed down, that's when the symptoms started. And I would say between the time that it started and at its absolute worst was from like day 1 to 12 months in. 12 months in is, I think, when I hit the peak of the worst. And for anybody who's had the bladder issues, I don't even know how to explain them because they're so bad and so all over you all the time that it's absolutely, at least it was maddening for me. And it was like if you have a neck pain or a back pain or, it's an arm pain, leg pain, finger pain, carpal tunnel, I've had all of them. You can have moments of rest. But when it's bladder, and mine got to a point that it was not to, I am the queen of too much information. You had to pee all the time, urgently, all the time, no break. Then there's broken glass in there. Then the sensation was never ending and it was hell. I can only imagine if somebody said, what would hell be to you? And I would say this was hell. And it was bad. And that sort of 1 to 3 years, I was really stuck in this place of I was in tears. My doctor put me on Ativan, and I'm a coper. I'm a strong coper. And I couldn't do this. And I'd seen every gyno-urologist in Vancouver. I went to the head guy at VGH, Vancouver General Hospital, which is the top of the top. And it's funny because even at one point in time, after like the 5th visit that I'd seen him, even he said, Sam, you know what? We call it interstitial cystitis. And I loved his honesty because you don't get a lot of honesty from doctors. They sort of, there's an ego there and they don't want to say they don't know what it is. But he said, look, Sam, interstitial cystitis really is an umbrella term for something in that area that we don't understand. Like we don't know what it is. And I'd had all the studies. He'd done cystoscopies, which, by the way, are horrible. And I'd done like things that you'd never think you'd do. You do. I just remember peeing in a glass bowl in front of 12 people going, this is my life. Like you've tried everything, urodynamics, catheters, like thank God they take you. And in Canada, hallelujah, your medical's covered. We have socialized medicine, so it didn't cost me anything, but I'm doing everything I possibly can and seeing every possible gyno-urologist, everybody's been up there.
And did any one of them mention the possibility that this could be a brain-to-body condition?
What's funny is my GP, who I fired at the time because I thought, how dare you say this is in my head? He was the only guy. And I saw him years later and went, Dr. Smith, I'm so sorry. He's such a lovely man. He just went, no, I get it. But he said, Sam, I think, because he's the one sending me to all these meetings. And he said, Sam, I really think that this could be psychological. And I was so offended. I'm like, and everybody goes through this. My clients, I've watched them all now. They do the same thing. How dare you say this is in my head? I think they need to learn how to voice it, vocalize it better, because what they need to say in this great term that Sarno said or Nicholas Sachs said, and it's not in your head, but the solution is not in your body. And that's such an incredibly important line to say, because everybody, when somebody says, I think this is psychological, you say, how dare you think that? You think I'm making this up? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think I'm bananas? I'm losing my mind.
That's the number one question I get from my medical audiences is how do I talk to my patients so that they won't throw me out of the room when I bring this up? And another way to phrase it is that it's not in your head, it's in your brain.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot of people to recognize that there are real physical changes in the nerve pathways in the brain. So there is a physical cause for this. It's just not where you're feeling it.
Yeah. And that's what I try to tell people is, look, if you took a picture of your body where the pain signals, they're firing for sure. This is not, you're not making it up. This is not you looking for attention. They're literally firing, but the solution is not where you're feeling it. The solution is not in the body. The solution is up here. And so I was that first one that said unbelievable. So I fired my doctor and went to a next one. And, they're getting better, but the medical community is still so far behind. If even they're barely even on this page, I think they're getting better. My doctor, my GP now understands it. She kind of had mentioned something called central sensitization.
Yes, that's a synonym for neuroplastic symptoms.
Exactly.
But the people who are aware of that oftentimes don't know how to diagnose or treat the underlying cause. The idea is that you have central sensitization, full stop, and that we can't diagnose why you have this and we can't do anything to treat you. You just have it, and you're probably neurotic and you can't handle your own life stresses, and it's not really a medical condition because there's nothing wrong with your organs and structures, so please go away.
Exactly.
It may not be voiced like that, but it frequently is the attitude, unfortunately.
Well, she kind of just said, go look it up online. And there was so little online that long ago. I know. And I went, you mean I have an oversensitive elbow? And they didn't even explain it well online when in the initial stages of them describing what central whoever put the description out there, it was the early days. So they didn't describe it well. And I went, well, I don't have a pain in my elbow that I didn't even understand the explanation. So I went on, and over the next, 20 years I had this. So over the next, sort of 10, 12, 15 years, I really tried everything. Oh my God, I get an A for effort. I went to the jungles of Peru and did ayahuasca.
Yeah. So tell us about that, because, there are people out there that are looking at psychedelics for treating this condition. How did that experience provide any benefit?
Zero. And it's funny because a placebo effect, like you try something and you go, I tried SIBO and then I tried SIBO again, or whatever the what is the medication that you take for SIBO? It's an extreme antibiotic.
Yes, yes.
And it burns the insides. I tried everything. I tried that. I tried putting all kinds of things up there. And, I tried ayahuasca. I thought maybe psychological, because I think I was starting to catch on that this could have a cycle. I've done the work in my life. I have horrible parents. I had a horrible upbringing. I started the work early. I knew at 20 that my brother and I were going to be screwed up. So I was not unaware of mental health and addressing mental health. So I was very aware I'd seen psychologists. I'd had panic attacks in the past. I have a bookcase full of books that if a date ever came to my place and saw my bookcase, they would run screaming from I've been working on myself for a long time. So,
okay. Yeah. So I want to just interject there that this concept, this very simple concept that your brain can do incredible things to your body in terms of creating pain and illness, and that this can come from stress and trauma and emotions and life challenges and childhood adversity. Just that simple idea that the brain can do this to the body, if that was out there in the world amongst the medical profession, the mental health profession, amongst the general public, you would have made that connection far earlier. And that's what the ATNS tries to do, is to make this common knowledge.
Well, and to make it bite-sized, and to make it bite-sized pieces, and to make it understandable so that somebody doesn't do what I do and fire their doctor. You got to sort of introduce them to it slowly, because for him to say, I think this could be psychological, that was the end of it. It was, no, don't talk to me. This is in my body. And, I know how to talk to people now about it. So do you. But back then, people didn't. They didn't even know what it was. Even your GPs were like, well, I've heard of this thing and it's weird. And I don't know, central sensitization, look it up. Didn't make sense. It was this is still such a pioneering field, right? So and 20 years ago, it really was not talked about, even though Sarna was around from the 70s. But it was such, and this is the travesty of this. This has been around for a long time. And how have people like me and I have to say, I was probably suicidal 3 times just because, and I wasn't even unhappy about it. I wasn't crying. I just wanted out. And I know I've talked to people that have felt the same way. When your doctors say, I guess this is, I don't know. We don't know. We've done everything.
Yeah, you're going to have to live with it, and we can't help you. Yeah.
Change your diet, change your sleeping pattern, stop drinking coffee, don't drink alcohol, all this stuff. You're going to have to try. I tried all that. And I tried the diet. I did this Candida diet. Although I did lose 50 pounds, which I was kind of happy about, because I could handle to lose 50 pounds in a very short period of time. But sure enough, and everybody that's tried everything, you are let down every time, because every time you try something and you're really excited that this is going to be it, and then it fails. And
so what was the turning point, or was it more gradual? Was there something that finally got you pointed in the right direction?
It was a weird thing. I had been introduced to, actually, who gave me the first book? It was your book, that They Can't Find Anything Wrong. And that was a long, long time ago. And I didn't respond to it. When you're not ready to see it, you're not ready to see it. And I went, please don't even, this is not what this is. I think somebody gave me one of Sarno's books. They gave me, I think it was actually Healing Back Pain. And I think I read it, then I picked it and, threw it against the wall. How dare you guys say this is in my head? This isn't in my head. You don't understand. I'm like, there's no way this much pain is being created by this. There's just no way. We know that now.
Yeah. No, our good colleague, Alan Gordon, had the same reaction. He threw the book across the room after his mother gave it to him.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. And I went, how dare you? And it's invalidating. Well, you feel it's invalidating because there's no way, you just can't think that your brain and nervous system can create something so horrible that you want to kill yourself. It's working against you, and you think, how can it be working against me so badly? Now, we know now that's not the case.
Yeah, I didn't believe it either. I mean, I went through 7 years of formal medical education before I found out about this, and it still took me some convincing.
Yeah, it took, like I said, 20 years. So threw the book against the wall, kept struggling, kept trying everything. Qigong masters, standing on your head, meditation, figuring out how to put a pipe on the tailpipe of my car, because I thought, I can't do this anymore. And then eventually, the human drive to live is very strong, because I wanted out 3 times and I couldn't do it. We have a drive to live, and thank God. It's you can't drown yourself. Do you know that you can't drown yourself in a bathtub? You will always pull your face out of the water. You can't. So,
but it's interesting that you were trying things like ayahuasca and qigong, because those have nothing to do with the bladder. So you were looking for solutions
anything
elsewhere.
when you're desperate and you've tried everything, you will continue to try everything until something works.
All right. So let's get back to my question. What was the thing that finally got you in the right direction?
So I'm in Whistler and the symptoms have come up again. And now we're at year 15 and the symptoms are coming and going and now they're really bad. And I'd seen them change. Like I had start to see weird things. I went on vacation. When I would go on vacation, the bladder would stop, but I would get this really sharp tailbone pain. Bizarre. And I'm like, what? So I would start to see inconsistencies. Alan Gordon calls them inconsistencies. There were things that didn't make sense. When I was on vacation, when I was doing this, when I was drinking, when I was having a really, they would go away and then they would come back. So I'm like, okay, something's up. But for some reason, even though I've read a million books and done self-work, I still couldn't put it together. So I'm in Whistler.
Whistler, for our guests, for our viewers, is a lovely mountain town in British Columbia.
Yeah, we're driving down from Whistler. Friends of mine had a place up in Whistler. We were up there visiting, and the symptoms are so bad, I'm thinking about driving off. It's a beautiful drive, but it's mountains. You drive off, and I thought about driving off. And I looked at my phone, and on my Audible was Sarno's Mind Body Prescription. And I thought, you know what? What do you got to lose? Put it on in the car. So I put it on in the car, and by the time I hit Squamish, which was halfway to Vancouver, I pulled over and got gas, and I probably said, oh my God, I don't even know how many times I said it, 100. And sometimes they say when you're ready, the teacher will appear. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I'd read this, I'd seen this, I understood it, but for some reason now I got it. And what triggered me for that was he said it's repressed. He talked about, now we know it's more than just this, but he said repressed pain. This is pain you don't know about. Because I've always said, no, it's not that, because I'm very vocal. I'm very protective. I'm very boundary. I'm very openly angry. No problem. I come from radio and rah, rah, rah. I'm very easy. I go to anger easy. But when he said, no, this is stuff you don't understand. This is stuff you don't even know about. It's repressed. I went, oh my God, well, no wonder. Then this is stuff that's underneath that I don't even know about. And I'm like, well, okay. Got home, took out the description of the journaling, pulled up, started to look up different stuff, found Nicole Sachs, who explains the journaling process really well in a couple of videos on her YouTube channel. And sort of between the two, I did the journaling exercise as laid out by TMS. And I think my first week of journaling, probably like the lists were huge. It took a day just to make the lists. And then the first one was, excuse my language, I fucking hate my mother. Now at that time, I don't know if I hate my mother. We're on better terms now, but there's some damage, right? You have parents that were horrible parents. There's going to be some animosity there. And I'd never been able to exert it. Long story of...
Yeah, it's one of the most difficult things for my patients to recognize that they are incredibly angry at somebody that they also care about.
And I thought that I'd let that anger out, but as I learned, it's the stuff that's underneath. That's what's causing the pain or the symptoms is the stuff you are pushing down. And I thought, no, I'm pretty open about it, but there's stuff that I wasn't open about. So I wrote at the top of the page, I fucking hate my mother. My dad was a different story. And I wrote, and I think I wrote that for 4 days. I hate my mother, no lack. And I set the timer for 20 minutes. No lack, didn't pause for a second. And things started to shift. And I went, oh my God. The books that everybody gave me, they were legit. How could I be so? And then I thought, well, you weren't ready. You had to struggle. You had to struggle some more before you. So once I had that, now I was a hard case because my level of trust was zero and I had a lot of lack of safety. So there wasn't a lot of trust. I couldn't, it didn't just come out of it quickly for me. I was, as I always say, I was a hard case. And I think I was a hard case for a reason so that I can now help hard cases, but it didn't happen that fast. And as we know, the recovery of this is so linear. Like you go up 3 steps, then you go back 4 steps, then you go up 2, down 1, up 4.
Non-linear. Yeah.
Not, this is so not linear. So I would have good days and bad days, and I would notice when it got better and I would notice when it got worse, and nothing to do with food and nothing to do, caffeine a bit. Caffeine could send me a little bit because, get your nervous system all amped up. So I stopped drinking caffeine for a while and I did all the things because I was really desperate. I did all the things, and there were days when I was frustrated, this isn't working, and then there were days where it was like, no, I went 4 days without wanting to end my life, and, so it sort of did that, but I did it all, man. I did the courses. I am a 100%er. I will definitely jump all in, and then slowly but surely over time, between that and between talking to my nervous system, like I looked at everybody's stuff. I've got books of notes from Alan Gore. I read every book. I
Right.
took
So
notes.
can you share anything about what it was in your childhood that was difficult for you? We don't have to go into
No,
any
I
more
go yeah.
detail than you want, but
You know what? What I've learned, because I'm a therapist now, kids need 4 things, right? They need safety, nurturing, to be heard and to be seen. And what I'm learning more now is they really need safety more than anything. And God love my parents. I was a child of late 60s. My father was a complete psychopath. No interest in his kids, zero. I don't even think I never did anything with my dad. There was only ever yelling. He beat up my mom. There was a lot of our household was horrible. And back then you didn't talk to anybody. And there were it was ugly. My dad he threatened to kill us. He drove behind us and bumped our car all the way along a bridge, threatening, it was really nasty stuff. And my mom, both my parents were British. My mom was so emotionally void from her own screwed up childhood. You look at your parents' childhood and go, what did they get? They got nothing. And they didn't learn from there. So my mom had no EQ. My mother was unable to give us safety or kindness, or she just couldn't do it. So here, my brother and I, we have no safety, and I had zero safety. I fell out of the car and nearly died. My mom's like, pick her up, dust her off, she's fine. Lots of stuff like that. I was never able to talk to anybody. There was nobody ever in my life. I was always alone. There was no one home. And when I was scared, there was nobody for me to talk to. There was no connection there. So I grew up needing to operate for myself. My mom sent me to a child therapist, very highfalutin, divorce therapist. My brother was wetting the bed and stuttering at 12 and I was 10. And she said, how are they? And he said, oh, they're a mess. And she goes, yeah, what do I do with them? And he said, he said, your son's going to be fine. And she said, but my daughter is a precocious, loud little powerhouse. And he said, she has no idea that she's safe. She's actually powerhousing because she thinks she has to survive on her own. She's got this, it was all called the omnipotent child thing, where she literally doesn't feel safe in any area of her life. And I was, 8, 10. She wants her own car and her own apartment because she literally thinks she has to operate on her own. So I had zero safety. So my nervous system was up here.
Yeah. Vigilant all the time.
All the time. And I still struggle with it. I walk fast, talk fast, eat fast. I do everything, and I have to stop and go, Sam, even now. And I work with people with this. This is what I do now. And even I have to go, stop. I need to do the breathing exercises. I still need to work on it, because your nervous system, when it's like that for so long, it takes a while for it to believe that it's safe.
Yeah. And to reach the point where you can truly feel emotions that have been buried, like, the anger that you finally expressed for 4 days in a row. Those emotions get totally sealed over when people are in environments like that. Another long-term issue that many of my patients have when they come from adverse environments is that they struggle to put themselves on the list of people they take care of.
Yeah.
They don't take time for their own joy. They are constantly focused on pretty much everything else in the world, and they're on a treadmill they never step off. Did you have that?
But you don't think you do. You know what's funny is I've always been a very strong, outgoing personality. So I'm like, no, I'm not like that. I tell people how it is. I do exactly what I want to do. And are you kidding me? I don't care what other people think. I had to look back and go, my God, I only care what other people think. And to know that, and to know that I made sure that everybody else was okay, because if they were okay, that I was okay. So there's 2 parts of you. There's the part of you that's this conscious self, that you're a powerhouse and no, I can handle anything. And then you really have to stop and look at those personality traits and go, and I'm all of them. And it's people pleasing, perfectionist, control, because they would help me survive. If people accepted me the way I was, then I was worthy, and I would survive, because I always had this fear that I wasn't going to survive. So I did everything unconsciously to survive, make sure that everybody else is happy, make sure that I'm dancing as fast as I can, make sure that I'm perfect.
Yeah, a lot of these personality traits are very well known to people who write in this field. Dr. Sarno, Dr.
Mm.
Schechter, myself, Dr. Schubiner, they are very common in people with neuroplastic symptoms. And where they're derived from is learned as survival mechanisms for people who are in very challenging home situations as kids. They help you get through that.
Yeah.
So does suppressing your emotions, because if you didn't suppress them, they would just overwhelm you. And
And a kid doesn't know how to deal with that stuff, right? Like,
exactly.
and I look back on the horrible things that happened to my brother and I, and when you become an adult, you write it off, right? For some reason, we all go, "Oh, it wasn't that bad." And my mother used to say, "Please get over it. Your brother and you were not." What did she say? "You weren't locked in a shed and beaten with a garden hose." And you start to believe that, like I wasn't beaten up, and so you believe it. You go, "Yeah,
Well, and my patients tell me this. They say, other people had it worse than I did, and they seem to be okay. And
and
it
then you
wasn't
look
it
back.
wasn't that bad. And
Yeah, and what am I? I'm being a whiner. You get gaslit by your own parents and the people around you. So you go, well, I'm just whining. I'm being a whiner. But then your inner self, you got to go to your authentic self. You got to tune in with that inner child and go, okay. And somebody taught me something that said, if you were to open a door to your past and look in on that 5, 7, 8-year-old and say, how are you doing right now? What would they say? And that was poignant for me because I went, that kid would be lost, numb. She's in fight flight because she's so terrified that she's going to be rejected and abandoned. So she's flying as fast as she can just to survive. This is survival. She doesn't think she's loved or taken care of. She legitimately feels that she would be kicked out of the tribe. She doesn't know this. She just knows you got to fly right or you will not survive. That's our inner instinct. That's your,
yeah.
in your, what do they call it? The brain, the primitive brain back there just knows you have to toe the line or you will be rejected. So you blame yourself. As a little kid, you blame anything that's going wrong. A kid doesn't know that it's their parents' problem. All they know is that the fault lays with them. So they have to toe the line, shut up, put those emotions
And
aside.
do your best to fix the problems in the household. And then when you are unable to fix those problems, then you just feel like a failure, and you try even harder, and you become extremely self-critical, and you
Yeah.
pay even more attention to details and become a perfectionist. Yeah, it's all of these personality traits that are so stressful for adults. They grow out of surviving a toxic environment or an adverse environment. And they can be unlearned, fortunately. When you get to be an adult and you recognize where these things came from, it's possible to unlearn them. You mentioned about opening the door and looking in on that little kid, or the technique that I often use is having people imagine their own child in that environment for a week or so, and they are forced to watch. And how are you going to feel about what that child is going through, and what are you going to say to them when they finish their week in that environment and they emerge and they've survived it? And you're going to give them a big hug, and you're going to say, that this was really, really tough, and you showed incredible perseverance to get through that week. And then when people realize, hey, I went through this for, in round numbers, 1,000 weeks, how much admiration should we give that person? It should be off the charts, because they've done an incredible thing.
But you know what? Your self-worth is so tied to this. And when you have grown up with parents that just couldn't do it, for whatever reason, you learn to be unworthy, and it becomes so ingrained that you don't even know that you feel unworthy. So when you feel unworthy, you don't think it's valid to feel good. You don't think it's valid when people give you compliments. I cannot handle them. I can't give myself compliments. You can't. And that also ties into the vigilance and the fight or flight. It all ties into what's going on. Your nervous system is just not seeing you as a valid person. And if you're not valid,
so
you're not.
You get imposter syndrome, where anything good that happens to you, you feel like you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
It affects close personal relationships. If you're involved with somebody that really thinks you're great, you don't necessarily agree with them. You're more likely to be in relationships with people who have problems, and that you need to support them and fix their problems. And you end up in relationships that are unbalanced, where you're giving 95% of yourself to the other person to fix their issues, and they're giving you maybe 5% back if you're lucky.
And you feel grateful that you've got that. Like, I know I've always chased. My mother used to say, darling, she's very British. Darling, you chase the men with the exit signs on their backs. And she had a great sense of humor and she'd laugh about it, but she wasn't wrong. She's right. I would chase, and I still have a problem with this. I chase men that are unavailable because the minute I catch one, I go, oh God, what if you like me, what's wrong with you? Now I have to fight that now and go, Sam, stop it. You know, you're going back to those. And I know how to go back and I know how to do the work, but it's still something you automatically feel before you stop it and say, what are you doing?
Yeah. When you finally recognize that, as I tell a lot of my patients, that your early life was analogous to parachuting into a dangerous jungle as a toddler, and through no fault of your own, you found yourself in this place. And you deserve tremendous credit for having made it through that experience. And when you can internalize that belief in yourself, you can flip the incredibly negative self-image and low self-esteem and start to believe that you're actually quite an amazing person for having come through this. Once that is internalized, then an entirely different sort of person becomes attractive.
Yeah. Yes. And you see it. And the great thing is you start to see it and you see yourself change. And it's subtle because all of a sudden you'll do something you didn't do before and you'll go, oh my God, I totally just, dated a guy that was actually really nice to me that I could see myself spending time with that wasn't mean to me. And it's like, okay, that's way to go. Way to go. You got to pat yourself on the back. And
I actually might even deserve such a person.
Exactly. And, but people can tell you, you deserve it over and over and over again. And it can't come from somebody else. It has to come from in here.
Absolutely.
It has to come from in there.
No, it's interesting that a number of my patients have been in professions that involve putting themselves in front of the public, because when they it gives them an opportunity to get love back from their audience. And of course, those professions being what they are, they can also involve rejection. And if you had, as you described it, a really bad experience in Los Angeles during the pilot time, that might account for why you suddenly became symptomatic for the first time when you got back from that.
Yeah, I think well, you know what, as somebody else had said, our emotional cauldron is bubbling away here, right? And we're adding more stuff to it all the time. And because somebody will say, why did it go when I bent over to pick up my child and all of a sudden my back went out? If it was from my childhood, because you're filling that cauldron and you're stuffing all that emotional stuff in, and eventually that cauldron is just going to bubble over and threaten to inform your conscious brain of just how sad or angry or grief stricken. And your nervous system says, nope, she can't handle it. So everybody's boiling point when when it's a crick in the back or it's something, mine happened, I would just that cauldron was now bubbling over because it was full of all the crap that I'd, self-hate and whatever and it just so happened that I'd come back from pilot season and I was so rejected and so abandoned. And so I felt so, it was stuff from your past, right? It was stuff from my childhood. It was that rejection all over again. And it just.
So it was the last straw.
It was the last straw.
But I have also seen, ironically, that people can have their symptoms initiated by a positive experience, that they meet somebody who's really kind to them, or they have a life-affirming event of some kind in their life. And the contrast between that and how they were treated in the past, and how they were treated as kids becomes very striking. And it begins to stir up the negative emotions about what you had to suffer when you were young. Because if the life event or the new partner is very affirming and supportive and loving towards you, then you recognize more and more that you didn't deserve what you went through as a kid. And if you didn't deserve it, there's legitimate reason to be angry about it. But if you are a person who has learned to take anger and bury it, then the anger's got to find some other way out. And it does that through the body, as you know.
Yeah.
So ironically, these positive experiences can trigger things as well.
I remember experiencing positives and backing away from them or drinking through them. And I noticed that because my cat disappeared for 4 months. I got my cat back. I've never been so excited in my life, but I didn't know what to do with it. So I put it in my apartment and I went and drank beer with the neighbors at the end of the hall. And they're like, well, I'm just giving Kramer some time to acclimate. Why wasn't I just spending all because I couldn't handle the emotion? It was any overwhelming emotion can kick this off, right? So I couldn't handle the overwhelming love and positivity and relief. And I thought about it later. Somebody said, what do you mean you went to Dave and Diane's? They were down the hall to drink beer. And I was like, why did I do that? Why didn't I, just sit there with my cat and cry? Because I couldn't handle the overwhelm of positive emotions. Because it didn't make sense. At the time,
Yeah.
I made it made sense, but and I had to go numb it. I had to go drink beer.
Yeah, that, the extreme level of suppressing emotions means that you're suppressing the good ones too. And if they try to come knocking on the door, you're not used to it. And I've had patients where all of their emotions were buried. That's a condition technically called alexithymia, and
Yeah.
they just don't feel anything. And some of them actually resort to cutting themselves as a way to feel something. It's a therapeutic action on their part. It helps them to feel something, which helps them to feel better. But it can absolutely reach that level where even the good emotions are gone.
Yeah. Or dangerous. And I think in my case, any emotion was dangerous because what I learned later was my nervous system said, well, you had to bury them as a child. It was overwhelming. So I buried everything as a child, and anything that came up was scaring my nervous system, anything at all. And it just went, nope. And first it was anger. And then eventually, by the time I hit March 7th of 2004, it was like, okay, we need to now, it's got to be pain. It now has to be pain because she's not listening to this. This isn't getting through. Anger didn't work anymore. Then it had to actually be something that was painful.
Yeah, that's the striking thing about these symptoms is that they are a form of communication from the mind. The mind is not able to reach your conscious awareness. It's not able to reach your cognitive and verbal capabilities. So it does the best it can to try to help you by causing physical symptoms, pain or illness in your body. It's just, waving the flag saying, there's something you need to pay attention to here. Unless you encounter a practitioner that can give you some guidance, it's really hard to figure out on your own, as you found out, unfortunately.
I cried. What's really sad, and I say this to my clients very early, is your brain and nervous system are your best friend. Like, they actually are doing everything they can. They love you more than you do because they're doing everything they can to protect you. When I heard that, because I'd just never known anybody to love and protect me, I bawled my eyes out because I thought, my poor body, my poor brain and nervous system, this is being created. It takes a while for people to go, so I'm creating this as a way to protect myself. It's hard to wrap your head around that. But when you do, I was like, my poor me, my thinking brain is kicking my ass so hard. But part of me is doing everything it can to protect me from what I'm doing to myself. And that was so sad to me. So
Yeah,
sad.
but it's also such a revelation. And, I just look forward to the day when the ideas you just expressed become common knowledge. So where are you today? Are you still having symptoms? Have you completely recovered?
Yeah, I've completely recovered. Come and go with symptoms for a couple different reasons. One, I know what they are. I immediately know what they are. And I usually write them down and I say it out loud. And then I talk to them and I talk it down. But I think when you've struggled with, it took me till, my 40s. I'm 57. I just turned 57.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. Whatever, it's 2004, 21 years ago. Is that 21 years ago? Yeah, 21 years ago. It took a long time for me to come out of that. So I know that my system still wants to go to protection and fight flight. I know I still do things 100 miles an hour. Then I do the exercises. And sometimes I'm like, do I still have to do this? And I'm like, yeah, until your system. It took my entire childhood and 40 whatever years to get to that place of absolute treachery. So my system's not going to let go that fast. It's still going to go, wait a minute, that was a rejection. She can't handle it. And I have to say, you guys, we're okay. We're good. We're good. So yeah, do the flares come up? When I push myself, I'm still very hard on myself. You can know what to do and you still have to practice it. So they'll come and go, but I can get rid of them pretty fast. I'm not scared anymore. I know what it is. And I help other people with it. And sometimes it's a good thing. I won't get out of the house for 2 days because I'm working on, a course or something or a book that I'm writing. And when I have a little too much time by myself and I start to get lonely, the symptoms flare and I know that I've got to go out and spend time with people. But when I'm talking to myself and says, so my system tells me, hi, there's still sort of a little bit of hypervigilance in here. We're still feeling a little lonely here. They're just little reminders that I need to go out and change something.
Yeah, you're using the symptoms now as a form of communication about
as what they are.
the state of your mind and the state of your life, and it's just such a transformation. And
yeah. And I
Very
still
happy
journal.
you were able to do this.
And I still journal. And, everybody does it a different way. I think you really have to go after the emotional side and you have to go after the learned neural pathway side. It's the way that I look at it. There's the science of learned neural pathway. We have to, retrain. There's brain retraining, and then there's the emotional stuff. There's the, past stressors. There are emotional stressors, and then there's that sort of the learned pathway. And I believe that you have to go after both. So I still journal. When I'm having a little niggly bit, I'm like, oh yeah, or if it'll show up as a headache for no reason, I know what it is, and I'll either journal or I'll talk to my nervous system, or I'll do some nervous system exercises, which I think is something else we need to do. Or like you said, being kind to myself is something I have never been good at. It's not what I learned, and that's probably where my biggest challenge is.
Yeah, taking regular time for your own joy, as I often put it, finding an activity that's the moral equivalent of finger paints for a 4-year-old, that you don't care about the quality of it or who sees it. You're just doing it because it makes you feel good, and everybody needs that. It's an essential human skill, but it can take a long time even to feel like you deserve it, and then also a long time to learn what that might be for you.
Yeah.
That something that's not your usual goal-oriented task, but just something that has no point except you love it.
But here's an interesting thing about that. When you've grown up to please everyone else, you can get to 50 and go, I don't even know what I like to do.
Exactly. Yes, I've seen that in so many
And that's
patients.
me. And I was like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, sports scare me, because if it can't be perfect, then I won't do it, because like I said, the hangover of my childhood is still there and I have to talk to it all the time. But I'm like, I don't even know what I like. Like I like jigsaw puzzles, and I'm like, do you want to do jigsaw puzzle? I'm like, yeah, okay. I like adult coloring. There's something very therapeutic about adult coloring. I like to walk through the woods. I like to, do certain things. But you can get to adulthood and go, when you finally have to look at yourself and go, well, Sam, what do you like? And I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah, I hear this from my patients all the time. I recommend that they take a regular block of time every week to do trial and error to find out what might work for them, to give them joy. And they look at me and like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And when I hear that, then I know that they are missing this essential human skill.
And you don't know you don't have it. You don't know what you don't know, right?
That's right.
I'm taking
That's
a
right.
pickleball lesson. I'm starting to take pickleball lessons later this month, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm 57 and I'm starting, a hobby. And it's like, oh my God, well, this is, this is better late than never.
Yeah,
So
it absolutely makes a huge difference, because once you have learned this skill of self-joy. It's a skill you'll have for the rest of your life. And whenever the difficulties are getting, off the scale, you will now have something you know how to do that can counteract that.
And you also have to watch how you talk to yourself. And I feel like this was one of the biggest things that was missing, because when you talk badly to yourself and you've done it so long, you don't even hear it anymore. You have to start catching your own voice in what it says to you. And you even have to start writing that stuff down. And that's very important for, it's like, why do I have to be perfect? Oh, let's go play beach volleyball. Well, no, we can't. We'll be horrible at it. It's like, so what? What if we're not perfect? Well, if you're not perfect, you'll be rejected. So it's those old messages. So you have to catch your self-talk to start understanding where it's coming from, and to start talking back to it and say, that's not true. That's coming from survival when you were a kid. That is not true. You do not have to be perfect.
Yeah, it's a question I try to answer about all my patients, which is, what did you learn about yourself as a child that isn't true?
Yeah.
And if you learn that you need to be perfect to survive, that takes a long time to unlearn it when you've acquired that idea at such a young age over and over and over again. But if we can identify it as a false idea, a false assumption that's inside, that's the first step in removing it and replacing it with something more accurate.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful to you for sharing this incredible story. It's remarkable, your determination to survive. There was something inside you that knew that there was an answer out there, and you just kept fighting to find it for over 20 years, and it's remarkable, and I think it's going to be inspiring to many of our viewers who watch this. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we close?
I would say when you think it's not you, this is what I say to a client. Don't flatter yourself. This won't work for me. This will work for everybody else, but it won't work for me. I'm too far gone. I can't. Absolutely not. If it can work for me, it can work for absolutely anybody, because I thought I was so far gone. It was, 40 years of dumping this stuff into myself, and I could come out of it and fix it. And not only fix it, I'm now a chronic pain. I've walked away from the acting and the radio announcer because I think that the world needs to know about. It's an absolute travesty that the world doesn't know that 90 to 95% of chronic pain is mind-body related. And that's what the world needs to know, is whatever your chronic symptom is, if it's over 3 months, you make sure that you look into it, that it's not mind-body related. And there's a lot of people that can help you. There's websites, there's books, there's everything. You don't have to struggle. There is an answer. When the doctors say, well, this might be something you have to manage, don't believe that. And be your own advocate. I hate to say this. I had to learn to be my own advocate with my doctors. They try to do what they can, and then they got to go home to their families at the end of the day. They're not thinking about you. Be your own advocate. Look into every corner, because chances are you can be well.
Yeah, and the day is coming when those ideas are going to be common knowledge. We're not there yet. There is an industry out there that earns hundreds of billions of dollars providing treatments for this condition that don't work. And so that's a lot to overcome. But we are much farther along than we were 10, 15 years ago. And I'm confident that 10, 15 years from now, things are going to be very different.
Yeah, the word is getting out there. The studies are being done. There's more videos. That video that I think you guys did, that really, really good video where people are popping up and talking. And there's a doctor at the end that says, one day we'll look back on this and it'll be like leeches. Like, this will be such a known thing. Maybe not in our lifetime. I'd like to see it get so far. But Sarno started it on his own, and we're so much farther than Sarno, got. And now there are some celebrities that are talking about this, Howard Stern and Vince Vaughn and other people. And I always try to being an actor, I always try to send a private message to actors that are going through this. And I say, dude, trust me, it's just trying to get them to be open to something else. And then the minute they are, they're fine. Anyway, you're right. We're getting there, and there's more studies all the time. There is science, and I think people wanted to see the science. There is the science now. There are the peer-reviewed studies, and that's what we need to continue to show people, and we'll get there. It's just...
Absolutely. Sam, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.